I'm Kyliegh Curran. I play Lenore Usher in Fall of the House of Usher, and you're watching Pop Culture with Pat.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture at Pat. So I am super excited to be joined by today's guests. Today I am talking all things the Fall of the House of Usher with Lenore herself, Kyliegh Curran. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Kyliegh.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So to start things off, and by the way, guys, we're going to go into a little bit of spoiler territory. Which, if you haven't seen The Fall of the House of Usher, what are you doing? Make sure you go check that out now. It's an amazing series. But I just want to give you guys that heads up. Obviously, Kyliegh, you worked with Mike before. He loves to bring back actors that he's worked with in the past. So how did your involvement with The Fall of the House of Usher kind of come to be? Did you have to audition, or did Mike reach out to you saying, hey, I got a role that I think might fit you perfectly? How did that kind of work?
Lenore was my first role that I actually didn't have to audition for. So I was really
Nice.
stoked. Yeah, he contacted my team and my mom and asked, hey, I'm doing this project, The Fall of the House of Usher, and I have this role open for Kyliegh, and I was wondering if she'd be interested. Yes, I was interested. So yeah, I was really stoked.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, obviously, you must have had a great time working with him on Doctor Sleep. So I imagine seeing that message coming from Mike, you're probably like, all right, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, what was it like? I guess just to work with him. I can't believe it's already been what's like 4 years, I believe, since like Doctor Sleep like hit theaters. So what was it like to work with him again?
Can't believe it's been 4 years. It was amazing. I love working with Mr. Mike. His sets, they just feel like a family. It's really, he works with the actors really wonderfully. He's very communicative, which I really appreciate. It was so surreal. I love him. I love working with everybody there.
Yeah, I got to meet Mike a couple years ago. We did a convention, like kind of in the area where I live, and I got to talk to him for a little bit. And yeah, I mean, he just from just those few minutes talking to him, he seems like he's a great guy. So I imagine, and then just having, like I said, having all those people on the set, it must just kind of feel like a family, basically a second family.
It does, definitely. Everyone's really friendly. It feels really special.
Now, how familiar were you with like the work of Edgar Allan Poe going into this project?
I'm a really big fan of Edgar Allan Poe. Funny story, I first read The Fall of the House of Usher on the Dr. Sleep set.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was kind of like a full circle moment.
Yeah, talk about
But,
ironic.
yeah, no, it was like crazy timing. Yeah, I've kind of grown up with Edgar Allan Poe. I love Gothic literature. Um, so getting the opportunity to play Lenore, who's also one of my favorite poems, was a really amazing opportunity, and I was really happy that Mr. Mike trusted me with the character.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously it sounds like you had a pretty good background where you're pretty familiar with Edgar Allan Poe's like work, but did he give you like any additional homework to do to prepare for this role, or did you do any additional homework yourself in order to prep for playing Lenore?
Mr. Mike, he trusts his actors a lot, which is really rare and really wonderful. So he didn't explicitly say, hey, you should go read this to be prepared. But before we started shooting, I sat down with him and Mr. Michael Finney, and we talked about what they saw in Lenore, their kind of vision, and what I would like to bring to the role, which the communication really helped kind of get rid of any kinks in the filming process. But yeah.
I mean, that must feel so great too, to just like you said, just have someone be so collaborative and be open to, sharing your thoughts of what you think the character is going to be. So, I mean, that's fantastic. And there's so many incredible scenes. So I got to actually watch, I mean, the show was like, it came out actually on my birthday, October 12th, but I got to watch it ahead of time. So I was able to see it for Netflix. And I mean, I'm a huge fan of Mike Flanagan's work. Everything the guy does, like, it's so hard to kind of pick like a favorite. Doctor
Yeah.
Sleep, I think, is like my favorite of all time that he's done so far. But I mean, the guy, like everything that he puts out is just amazing. It's like whenever I see a new project from him, I'm definitely going to be watching it. So a lot of incredible scenes in here. What's your favorite scene as Lenore? And then what is your favorite scene from someone else in the series?
Oh, okay. My favorite scene as Lenore was probably the confrontation with Pym. Because up until that point, we kind of see Lenore as this quiet, resilient strength, and we don't really see her use the Usher family venom. But in this scene, she uses it for good, which I really loved playing. And my favorite scene that wasn't Lenore is, the lemonade scene with Mr. Bruce and Mr. Carl. Oh my gosh. It
Yep.
was so good. I watched it with my mom and the goosebumps. They're so talented. It was really, really good.
Oh yeah, I mean
Loved
it
it.
was funny because like I said, where I got to see it ahead of time, obviously
Yeah.
you're waiting for everyone else in the world to get to watch it. And
Yeah.
once it came out, I'm not kidding, I saw so many people on Facebook, on different social media posting about the lemon scene. So I think that was definitely a standout. And I mean, man, those Mike Flanagan, those monologue scenes, there's so
Yeah.
many of them, but it's just like it's crazy how he puts so many of those together.
I agree completely. Oh my gosh.
Now, and speaking of incredible scenes, so for you, Kylie, your scene with Carla, which by the way, I mean, she was just insane in this series. That's definitely like one of my favorite scenes in the series, like overall. It's beautiful, heartbreaking. Can you talk about filming that scene and just working with Carla, like overall?
I can, yeah. I love Miss Carla. I grew up watching her on the screen, and it was an absolute honor getting to work with her, especially face to face. Like, seeing it on screen is one thing, but being there in person and watching her is just so beautiful. She does something with her eyes where it's like you can't look away. So filming it felt so real because she's just so invested in the character and so talented. It's she's a wonder. I love her so much.
And so when the Lenore is like sitting there and you're listening to
Yeah.
her kind of give her, Flanagan monologue and you're just, staring at her, it's kind of one of the, like what you just said. It's like, it's hard not to be looking at her where she, that
Yeah.
speech.
Oh yeah, definitely. I was sitting there hypnotized.
Being a big fan of her, did you, get to talk to her? Did she give you kind of like any advice just where if she's, been around the industry, for a while? Did you kind of talk to her behind the scenes?
I got to talk to her a little bit. I think I was a little bit nervous because I'm such a huge fan. So I didn't, go and seek her out like, "Hi, Miss Carla, I absolutely love you." But oh gosh, she's so down to earth and humble. She was very sweet. I got to work with her for like a day, and my life was changed. But yeah, she's wonderful.
Oh yeah, no, like I said, she's definitely, one of the MVPs of the
Oh yeah.
series for sure. Now, so what was your reaction to seeing Crystal Valent, who plays your mom in the series, her all done up in her prosthetics and makeup for the first time? I've had her on the show for a previous project for Mike. So what was it like just seeing her all done once everything, like the makeup and everything was all done?
Yeah. Oh gosh. I thought the makeup artists are so super talented. I couldn't imagine like sitting there for so many hours just getting it made up. Oh, she's very resilient. But she makes it so easy to play off of her. She's so talented. Her body language, how she's breathing, what's going on in her eyes, it doesn't make it difficult at all. But yeah, everybody who played a ghost and Miss Crystal, they are very resilient.
Yeah, yeah, no, I imagine that's, a lot to do every day, like you said, getting in all that makeup for filming and everything. And what was it like working with her? Because you do share some scenes where, she's just her normal character, and then after the events of what happened, where a lot of it's just you speaking to her. So I'm curious, like what those interactions were like. Was it weird at all? Just kind of like you just talking to her and her just giving you like little reactions, or how did that kind of work?
I think for me, it wasn't too difficult because, yeah, like I said, her body language, what's going on with her eyes, it wasn't that difficult. But there were definitely some moments where I felt kind of like just a floating head or like a floating voice in there. But it was a lot of fun because I hadn't really done many scenes like that before, where it's like such a character. She doesn't talk at all,
Yeah.
but she speaks a lot without speaking, I think. So it wasn't awful. It was a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, and
I
I
love
got
it.
I got to tell you too, like I think the scene where you go to visit her and then she starts taking off like the bandages.
Yeah.
I recently just like rewatched like the series again, and watching that scene, that still makes me, just because of like her doing that, but also your reaction at the time. it just like makes me cringe. I'm just like, oh, stop, like stop.
Oh, no, it was exactly like that while filming it. I don't think I had seen her in her makeup before that scene,
Oh, jeez.
especially the under of the makeup. So it felt super like anxiety producing, and I was losing my mind a little bit. But oh gosh, she did such a good job. Oh,
So
the
that was
atmosphere,
almost like
it was scary.
a natural reaction for you then, if that was like the first time kind of seeing her.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it was definitely.
So, and we kind of, you mentioned this a little bit ago too, just that Lenore is one of the only truly good people in the series, just surrounded by a lot of awful things, a lot of awful people. In your opinion, like, how did she, I know she's like younger, but how did she remain so pure being surrounded by such awful things and awful people in the series?
Yeah. I think part of it is she's kind of a parallel of Annabelle Lee. She's sort of the light of the family. And I think a big part of it is her mom. Maury, although she makes her mistakes, I'm a Maury defender. She's human. I think she makes sure that her daughter kind of stays away from all the nasty aspects of the family. I mean, Lenore knows some of the ins and outs, but she's kind of she's a little innocent and a bit naive because she doesn't really know the ins and outs. I think her mom really protected her from that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, like I said, she is younger, but you can tell. I mean, she knows to a degree what's going on, between like
Yeah.
her dad telling her different things, Pim, talking to her and stuff like that. So she knows enough. But it's just like, I can't imagine someone being in that environment and just not really being affected by it. So speaking of that, like if Lenore's fate, if it ended up, ending differently, how do you think that she would have been affected by the events of the fall of House of Usher if she ended up surviving the series?
I was just talking about this with my mom actually. Personally, I think she would be a little hardened by it. I don't think she'd lose her kind or loving spirit at all. But I think after an experience like that, you can't help but put up walls. I think she'd still be very loving, but she wouldn't be as innocent or trusting as she was at the beginning of the series.
And I think that's completely fair considering everything that happens from
Yeah. Oof.
episode one to the very end. That I would
Yeah.
completely understand that.
Yeah.
So
Oof.
where Mike, and we're talking about this too a little bit earlier, where Mike likes to work with a lot of the same actors, it must feel like almost like a second family to you. So do you have any fun behind the scenes stories, working with the cast? You've worked with some of them, previously on projects. So I'm sure you must have like some good stories with them.
Oh gosh, I think my favorite strange and silly BTS is during when everyone's all together. It's a little bit bonkers. You can tell everybody loves each other very much because they're constantly cracking jokes, and it's almost impossible to keep a straight face when you're all filming together. So during the funeral scenes, where you're supposed to be very serious, it was almost impossible to look next to you and see someone trying so hard not to laugh because they're staring at, I don't know, the funeral pictures or someone else in the scene. I don't know. In Frederick's funeral, I'm not too sure how many people took a good look at the picture they chose for his funeral. Um, but Mr. Henry, who plays Frederick, made sure to point it out to all of us. It's the most ridiculous picture ever. And when I was filming sort of one-on-one with Mr. Bruce, I couldn't look at the picture because I would start giggling, and I didn't want to be unprofessional. But it was so good. Oh gosh,
Okay,
definitely that was a lot of fun.
so I'll have to keep an eye out for that. Then the next time, like going through or just look at that scene, that episode, like specifically. But
It's so funny.
But yeah, I mean, like I completely understand. Like I said, with having a lot of the same, working with a lot of the same people, I feel, you guys just feel a little bit more like loose and just like willing to kind of like you know each other more and just willing to have like I say not willing to have like a little bit more fun, but it just kind of comes like naturally where you guys have just been around each other, before. So I'm sure there's a bunch of great stories. Did Mike
Yeah.
like does Mike ever did he ever get like mad at you guys if anyone started laughing? It's like, all right, guys, come on, let's get back to work.
There were some times where we needed to be more serious and we were called out on that, but he wouldn't explicitly say, everybody, shh, no more laughing, stop. But
I feel like
there were,
Mike's like a pretty chill guy though. So I feel
oh,
like he would let you guys have fun, but obviously, like when it's time to, get back to work, like you guys
He
will
was a
all.
part of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He seems like he would be.
Yeah.
So, Kylie, I mean, you got to work with some. We've already talked about a couple of them, but you got to work with some incredible, fellow actors on this series. What did you just, or what are some of the things that you took away from this experience, working with them overall?
I think working with such a robust cast was maybe a little bit overwhelming sometimes because I'm such a huge fan and they're all so talented. But I think what I took away from the experience is how important community is. When you see actors coming together and can see how much they love a character, it translates really well on screen. You can tell when someone doesn't really love the project they do. But I think that's one of the most wonderful parts of the Flaniverse is you can tell how much everybody loves working with him and loves their characters. And I really appreciate that personally.
Oh yeah, and I mean, like one of the highlights from all of Mike Flanagan's work is really how the characters are written. So I'm sure you guys coming into the roles, I mean, looking at like the characters and how they're written, some of the different lines and stuff like that, it must make you, just extra excited to see like what Mike and his team have planned for you.
Oh yeah, I remember every time I read the script and there was even the tiniest change, I was always so excited, like kicking my feet reading the script.
And now, being around, so many different talented people too, does that kind of motivate you? Obviously, you always want to bring like your A game, but does that being in a setting like this, does that motivate you extra to just like really want to take your performance to the next level?
Oh, definitely. Whenever I saw everybody else's scene work, even outside of it, like watching Haunting of Hill House, watching Bly Manor, watching Midnight Mass, all of them, I felt like I really wanted to become a better actor. And I think I took I stole a little bit of everyone's performance. It was like, oh, I really like how I don't know, their eyes moved like that, or wow, they're really reactive in this. I think I want to try that out. And I think watching everybody else's performance is kind of a learning experience for me. So yeah, there was a little bit of mirroring.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure. I mean, like I said, just having such a big cast, but then just filled with so
Yeah.
many great actors, it's like I feel like it's natural to want it to like you're just learning from all these, different amazing people to incorporate that into your performance as well.
Yeah.
Um, Now, so what is something that you learned from your experience you did on another project with Mike working on Doctor Sleep? What is something that you learned from that experience that you would say helped you working on the Fall of the House of Usher?
I think probably you have to be really comfortable with your character. You can tell when someone's not comfortable and not ready with a script and a character, and everybody else is bringing their A game. So you got to be the best you can be. That's definitely something I learned.
Speaking of Doctor Sleep, we had talked about it, before we jumped on like briefly too, is that that's one of my favorite, not only, favorite for Flanagan, but also I would say like the past like 10 years, it's on my list of like top 10 horror movies. So it's like, and I just recently went back and rewatched it, and I love that Mike when it got released on Blu-ray and like 4K. I love
Yeah.
the fact that there was like an extra half an hour for the director's cut.
Yeah.
That made me, I'm such a nerd when it comes to like the behind the scenes and like any extra stuff like that. So when I
Yeah.
go back and watch the movie, that's actually like I watch the director's cut because it's like I get an extra half an hour to spend with you guys. And something that I learned rewatching it this time. So, like, I'm in New Hampshire, and part of
Oh
the
wow.
movie takes place in New Hampshire. And so
Yeah.
I was rewatching it, and I'm like, I wonder, because obviously, like, it wasn't filmed in New Hampshire. So I was like, where was this filmed? And so I looked it up, and it was Covington, Georgia. And I
Yeah.
was actually there. Now it's like what 12 years or something like that. But I went there with a trip with my dad, and like we were at like almost that exact bench where you and McGregor are having that conversation.
Teeny town. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I was like, my mind was blown. I was like, whoa. So I was there like obviously years before you guys filmed the movie, but that was just like a really cool connection. What comes to mind, just like looking back on the film, like I said, where it's been 4 years now, like what comes to mind of just your time and your experience of working on that movie?
I think I was really lucky to get Doctor Sleep as my first big film project. I hadn't really done much film before Doctor Sleep, and it was basically my first lead role. Um, and I was treated really nice. Everyone was very sweet. It was my first time working with such huge actors as well, so I learned a lot about acting in the film industry. My first time working really long days, but yeah, definitely it was a real cathartic experience. And sometimes I wish I could go back in a time machine and watch myself do it again because it was so fun.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I hope like one day too, it would be, great. Like I don't know if they're gonna do it like anytime soon, but I really, really hope in my heart of hearts that we get to see some kind of sequel or even just like a spin-off of like Abra, as she's like a little bit older, as you're getting like a little bit older too. I really hope we get some kind of project with those characters like in the future. So
Me
fingers
too.
crossed. Yeah, I'm sure you would love to, like you said, you would love to revisit the character, it sounds like as well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Abra was so much fun to play, especially when I was 12, I felt exactly like her. And Mr. Mike was really kind. He kind of, I felt like there was a little bit of me in there. There were little Easter eggs that I really liked as a 12-year-old, like the whole emerald wig and all the Ruby posters everywhere. So yeah, I would love to revisit Abra. It was so much fun.
Yeah, and you've gotten to work on a couple of horror projects, already like in your career, and I've heard that you are, a pretty big like horror fan yourself. So let's say in the future you have the opportunity to work on, it can be like any horror property, it's stuff that's already been done. Obviously, we won't know if it's like something new coming out, but like any project, like let's say a Nightmare on Elm Street, a Halloween, any of those big things. What projects or what properties would you love to be a part of?
I think if they ever did a remake of We Have Always Lived in the Castle, I would love to play Mary Cat. I love Shirley Jackson.
Yep.
I was a huge fan of the book. And when I saw they already had an adaptation out, I was like, "Oh, I gotta watch this." But if they ever did a remake, or there's this film, The House, on Netflix, and I like it because it's kind of unsettling. It's not like traditional horror. It's kind of Lovecraftian in a sense. But the creator, Enda Walsh, I would love to work with her. I watched it with my sisters and my mom, and we love that type of stuff, like Coraline, Henry Selick. Love the unsettling stop motion.
Oh yeah.
Um, and of course, Guillermo del Toro. I love his stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and those are
Okay.
all great choices, and like hopefully, yeah, fingers crossed, we get to see you in maybe one of those projects like in the future.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Kylie, is there, to wrap things up for you, is there anything else that you would like to say about working on the Fall of the House of Usher, and just anything else that you would like to say to the fans out there?
It was an absolute honor to work on the Fall of the House of Usher, and you should support Mike Flanagan and all his endeavors.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. I think I just saw recently now, like the strike that is done, that I think he just finished up his latest Stephen King adaptation. So
Yes,
it's like
I'm
just give Mike all of the Stephen King adaptations. I also
I
know,
agree.
um, and I don't know how far along he is with that, but I know I've seen like postings about it. I think it's the Dark Tower series that he's like
Yes.
starting to like work on. So that, I imagine, with him and what he wants to do with that, I imagine that'll be pretty epic. Like once we finally get to see that as well.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited to see what he does with it. I love it all. I'm ready.
Well, hey, Kylie, hey, thank you so much again, for taking time out of your schedule. It was, like I said, it was great getting to talk to you, just being such a big fan of your work. Congratulations on the Fall of the House of Usher, and you are welcome back anytime in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. Hi, I'm Kyliegh Curran. I play Lenore Usher in Fall of the House of Usher, and you're watching Pop Culture with Pat.